17 years old, vulnerable, undressed in this bathtub in a strange place with people that didn't care about her. And I thought, I don't want to die this way. I did this and I decided I was going to take a bath. And within just a few seconds, my nose exploded. I was bleeding from both nostrils. My eyes started, the blood vessels in my eyes started to break. I collapsed into the bathtub. I don't remember. I just saw my heart pounding. I wanted to scream for somebody, but I was totally numb. My face was numb. My throat was numb.
I'd like to welcome to the show Spirit Doctor Sunshine Frost. How you doing, Doc?
Hi, Alex. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm looking forward to hearing about your adventure and misadventures in spirituality.
Yes.
As it starts. It's been a journey for you, without question. You didn't have just one NDE; you had two NDEs, which I always ask. Stop. I always tell people, stop dying. It's not part of the program. Why do you keep doing it? But before we get started, what was your life like before you had your very first near-death experience?
I have had a really traumatic and really tough childhood. I was abandoned by my mom at 3. My father was an alcoholic. So I came from a very loving but very dysfunctional family. And that kind of led to my first near-death experience at 17. I was involved with drugs. Like most teenagers, I was experimenting with things that I shouldn't have been, but not having those parental role models. I was really lost to my own devices, and I was already kind of out of the house by 16, doing my own thing. So by 17, I wanted to be with the older crowd. I wanted to run with the older boys. And I found myself with a girlfriend and I in a hotel room, and we were going to party with these gentlemen. And one thing led to another, and I ended up having my very first spontaneous NDE.
So, before we get to the NDE,
Yeah.
Did you come from a religious background?
Yes, very religious. I always say I'm a card-carrying Baptist, Mormon, Pentecostal, born-again, recovering spiritualist.
You covered it all. I think you covered almost checked a lot of boxes off there.
Well,
all right,
I had a little bit of a gift as a child, but I never thought it was a gift. I was always really taught that this was against the church. It was against God. So I was very afraid to use any of these abilities. And they were very spontaneous as a child, knowing the phone was going to ring, Alex, maybe knowing somebody might going to be ready to pass or be sick. Those were things I would say as a child, but be very chastised for. So I was very afraid, and I was taught that this was a curse. So even though I probably had maybe a little more than a modicum of ability, I did a great deal of suppressing and fear before that NDE.
Really?
So I had a lot of religion.
That's one of the common themes I get on the show is a lot of people who their programming, their religion, their community, the stuff that they kind of stack on top of you kind of really hold you back. And I always find it fascinating that if someone has the ability, like you were saying, even as a young child, how can you not, if you truly believe that there's a God or a source and that it made all things, how can you be broken in that way if you have an ability that it's obviously God-given because you didn't pick it up, because they think you picked it up from the devil, obviously. The devil just goes around handing out these gifts. I don't know where even Dante didn't write that. I have no idea where they get the idea.
I was told everything from it's the music my family was listening to. We weren't praying enough. I wasn't praying hard enough. I've been baptized 4 separate times, and every time it's actually increased my gift every single time. So at this point, I just take a bath and I get baptized every day. I just baptize myself every day with some salt water and a little soap and water. But it actually increased the gift. The more spiritually pure I became, the more intense the ability to channel became. So it was totally synonymous, one with the other. So my experience internally, Alex, really didn't match what I was being told. So it caused me a great deal of turmoil and stress. I ended up, really turning on myself into self-harm and eating dysmorphia and things like that as a really young teen girl with all of these feelings and intuitions, but just being told they were witchy. You know, you're a witch. I was told that so many times growing up, like, oh, you're a witch. She's a witch. You know, what you're doing is witchcraft. And I'm thinking, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I simply would tell my grandmother, oh, your mom's calling, or we need to bring a Band-Aid. Someone's going to get hurt. And then, of course, you know, how could you know that? And they'd go, oh, that's witchcraft. So I heard that a lot, enough to really make me stifle all my gifts and abilities.
So tell me what happened that night in the hotel room. What led to your NDE?
I'm going to be quite honest. That's the way I am with my show. I do a show called Spirit Uncensored. And we try to never censor anything because you never know what part of your story is going to resonate with a different audience. So this is the unpolished version, not what's in my book. There's more in detail in the book I'm coming out with this year. But essentially, I was a young girl that had never really partied. And I went to the bathroom and I did what I thought was going to be a simple little setup, little things for each of us. I don't want to get into the details.
Yes,
but
I can. We could connect the dots.
Okay,
yes.
I did this, and I decided I was going to take a bath. And within just a few seconds, my nose exploded. I was bleeding from both nostrils. My eyes started. The blood vessels in my eyes started to break. I collapsed into the bathtub. I don't remember. I just saw my heart pounding. I wanted to scream for somebody, but I was totally numb. My face was numb. My throat was numb. And immediately I just felt myself sinking. And I was already in the bath at this point. It took me about 3 seconds from one to the other. And I began to sink through the actual, which was the most unusual feeling because I was totally in fear, panicking. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. I could hear myself trying to breathe. But then in one moment, it was just like drowning inside myself. And then I was sinking through the water, through the cast iron bathtub. I could feel the metal. I could taste the metal somehow, even without my body. And I was going through the floor of it was a first story hotel room, moving through it downward, not upward, as most people experience. I was sinking downward and I could feel the earth. I could smell it. I could feel this dark, cool feeling, but yet I knew I was very separate from my body. And I instantly began to, it feels like I was there for a day. And I remember just saying, this is what I deserved, because I had been the victim of sexual abuse. I had no parents that really loved me. My mother abandoned me in a bathtub when I was 3, in a hotel room. I really didn't have self-love. So I, in that moment, believed, and my mindset believed I deserved that. And so in that few moments, I was very separate from everything that felt like God. And I had to go inward to find that place. And I remember I went to Awanas when I was a little girl. And it was like a little Wednesday night program at church. And there was this little song about Jesus. And, you know, do you love me? I love you. And I started to kind of sing inside myself. You know, if you're real, do you remember me? Kind of singing that song. And it's still emotional even now. You know, just saying, do you remember me? And as I began to think it, my mind was like a balloon carrying me upward back through the sinking. I went just almost shooting up, as if my own mindset was determining where I was going to go. I mean, it's the most incredible thing. My mindset was taking me either to heaven or to hell. My own belief, you know, and I began to rise up. And then, Alex, I went through my body and I saw my body. And I felt such a sadness and such a shame at how badly I had treated my body and how the things I had said about her and how much I had judged her for her physical looks and how I had put all of these restrictions on food and said these things about myself that weren't true. And I saw her there, 17 years old, vulnerable, you know, undressed in this bathtub in a strange place with people that didn't care about her. And I thought, I don't want to die this way. And what did I do to my body? Why didn't I love her? She's so precious. And I think everybody feels that way when we're out of body, how grateful we are to have had that vehicle. You know, like we don't appreciate our bodies. They're such a gift to us, really, in the physical world. We can't experience the joys of food or so many other things that we can't enjoy in the spirit. So I looked at my body and I kind of wanted to stop there for a moment, but I kept going upward. And it was like 2 stories up. I was with a guide, and the guide I could not see the face of, but I could see a very bright image around the guide. And I started to cry. And my guide said to me, without talking, just through the mind, "You don't need to cry. It's okay." And I said, "I deserve to be in hell." And I was just so upset. Like, why am I here? I don't deserve to be here. I should go to hell. I'm not a good kid. I'm not a good person. I haven't been a good person. I never did anything for anyone else. You know, I really believe this narrative, this projection internalized of myself and my being. And this guy just said, "Let me show you something." And they showed me what I now know to be timelines. And they said, "Sunshine, if you continue in this timeline, this is what will happen." And they showed me the man. He was probably 23 and I was 17, and the other guy was like 26, and my girlfriend was 17. 2 17-year-old girls in a hotel room with a 25 and 26-year-old men being given drugs. And they showed me that even after they found my body, they didn't call 911. They left the hotel and called the hotel to find me later. And I had already passed for many hours. There was totally no ability to resuscitate. And my grandmother, who dearly loved me, was the one that got the phone call that I had passed. And I was her only grandchild. And it was devastating for my family. And they showed me all the people, which I couldn't really see at that time, but they gave me this feeling. I couldn't remember because they wouldn't let me remember who I was going to meet in this life and the things I was supposed to do. But they showed me the timeline of dying in that moment and what that would have meant for me. And then he showed me another timeline. It was him. And he said to me, without talking, of course, just telepathically, he showed me it was as if I had choices, and every choice I made opened up another timeline, which I didn't know it then. It just felt like a wishbone is what I called it when I was 17. Oh, I have a wishbone. It's a decision to make one road or the other. And they showed me that he told me that my life had been chosen for me with my own oversoul, with my help, and that my life was to be a life of transmutation, and that is why it was so difficult, and that I had taken on a five transmutating life path, which is like 5 lifetimes worth of suffering, that I had chose that because I was a guide soul in this life. And I didn't know what any of that meant at the time. But he said, "Do you want to go back?" And I still was very insistent that I did not want to go back if I didn't have something to give to the world, because I felt very purposeless and that my life was meaningless. Even though I had felt compassion for my body, I had felt compassion for my grandmother, I just felt as if I served no purpose. And I really didn't want to go back here again without a purpose, just like a leaf on the breeze, floating through life, feeling unanchored, ungrounded, feeling alone and separate from God and from everything, because I tried so much to get close, but I never felt connected. So I was told that not to worry. And they called me Christina, which is my middle name. He did not call me Sunshine on the side. He said, "Christina, I promise you, you will have a gift to give the world if you trust me and you choose to go back." And behind him, there was this beautiful place. It was so beautiful. It was like a beautiful park. If you can imagine, Central Park, and there were benches everywhere, and there were children and I knew all the children that had passed in childbirth or in young children. These were not older. These were all very young children that had either just came off of planet or were going to transpire onto planet. And they were with the grands and great grands, and they were in this park. And there were animals and things there. It was just beautiful. Pets that had crossed over were there. I could see all of this from where I was at. I could see reception areas to my right. There was like some temples, it looked like, in the back with crystal ceilings. It was quite beautiful. But I could only see the first part. I could see very clearly, Alex, but the rest of it, it's as if it was in a different frequency than me. And I couldn't make it out from where I was at.
Hmm.
As we were talking, I had moved further into what you call heaven, I guess, which is just seems like it's only maybe two realms above us, but there's multiple levels of everything. So like three heaven, like when they teach three heavens, I agree with that. Maybe 12 or 13 realms in each heaven, and then 12 in each of those, so maybe 144 levels, who knows? But I knew that there was multiple levels to this that I couldn't access or see, just knowledge, intuitively not knowing this. And I decided to come back.
Why?
I made the decision because I felt really confident in that promise that there was something I was here to give the world, that there was something, there was some purpose for me. And I wasn't just a name, a faceless child, a person that didn't matter. I felt they promised me, and the promise felt so real that there was something important I was going to do in the world that would make a difference. That if I chose this timeline, I would be cheating. Like I said, I don't remember, but I know they did show me many things. But when I came back, I couldn't remember the details of like me meeting you right now, or, me doing the things that saving the lives I've saved as an EMT or as a surge tech, like those things I never really got to see, but they gave me enough confidence that my life had a huge meaning for me to choose to come back.
So when you were there, there was no life review. There was no tunnel of
Yes.
light. There was a
It
tunnel.
wasn't
Okay,
a
so there was a life review.
it wasn't a life review. It wasn't a life review in the fact of this is your life, this is what you did. I knew already that I felt so condemned because of my religious background. I didn't need the review. I already believed I deserved to go to hell. I believed I was totally impure, totally unsaved, unworthy. I was so convinced of my unworthiness and that I didn't have a value to God. How could he love me? So I already had so much self-condemnation that they didn't even try to condemn me. Actually, they were trying to raise me up into my worth and value and say no. And they showed me two timelines, which I didn't really look back on my life, which is strange. I never looked back on my life. In the first NDE, no. The light, yes, I did get rose up in light. My guide was there because I didn't go through any whoosh. I went from the bottom up through, saw my body. Then there was immediately a guide with me. And then the guide and I went together to this reception area. And in that reception area, as I said, he showed me two timelines, one where I would pass then, and it would cause a great deal of suffering. And I would have negated this life path. And essentially, I would have had to do it over, is what I think I was being told. Now, I don't remember those words, but I remember the feeling of, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to do all of this again. Realizing that at 17, I'd already transmuted sexual abuse, abandonment, being an orphan. I had already transmuted so much. I didn't want to relive those things to gain the value. So I was like, no. Okay, let's let's try. But if you're going to send me back, give me something great. Give me something special that'll just be worthy. So I have a purpose, and that's what I do remember about that.
Any other details that come to mind in that experience before you got sent back?
Just that I didn't know about concurrent timelines. I didn't know that everything I had a linear thought of life, like we were born here, we die
Mhm.
here, that's all there is. I didn't understand that there were guides. And this is, of course, the mind of a 17-year-old that had been really
Right.
religiously institutionalized. So I didn't have the understanding of spiritual matters. I hadn't really studied or trained. It was a very untrained, just religious, dogmatic mindset.
Mm. All right.
I
So
think
what happened when you?
they
Go
gave me
ahead.
what I could handle.
That makes sense. Yeah, you couldn't process anything else that was going
That
on at
was a
that
lot.
point. So what's really fascinating about this NDE is that you were going downward at first, and then that you got shot up once your mindset changed. And that coincides with a lot of other negative near-death experiences. It sounds like if you would have kept in that negative vibe or that
I would have
negative
stayed.
mindset, you would have gone down to a place of your own making. Because there's not technically a hell, but a hellish experience because you deserved it in your mind. And that's what I've seen
Yes.
commonly in others because of religious dogma. They're just like, oh, I'm worthless. I have to go to hell. And only when they decide I need help or please save me, then boom, you fly back. Then either a light comes, Jesus
Yes.
comes, Buddha comes, someone comes, grabs you, and then takes you to where you went to. But it seems like halfway down, you were like, I'm gonna go back up. And you changed your mind, and you start. So
Yes.
this could have been a very different experience for you. But this is very interesting to hear this, because it coincides with other stories I've heard.
Absolutely. I really felt as if, like I said, I felt like if I could, there's no time. So it's very hard. We all explain this, that there's no time, but when we're in the body, everything is ruled by time and circadian rhythms and lunar cycles. So to say that I was in that pit of despair for weeks is fair. And to say that I was in heaven for at least what felt like maybe a month is fair. That this all information was downloaded. I mean, I remember heaven having sounds. Everything made a beautiful noise. And when I read, there's some books I've read, My Time in Heaven. He talks about the grass having a sound and the trees. I could hear singing that singing stayed with me for 2 years after this experience. I could hear, if I focused, almost like hard to explain, a beautiful choir, a symphony, but it's so low and no one else could hear it. I'm like, could you hear that? No. Can you hear that? No one else could hear it but me. I had tuned into that frequency. When they say there's just singing and constant praising and joy, it's true. And everything there makes such a beautiful sound. The grass, the leaves, there's a frequency of vibrational sound, like the crystal bowls. That's why we love them, because they are absolutely the frequencies of heaven. It really is. Everything in nature makes this beautiful sound, and it all sounds perfect.
So when did you, what happened when you came back down?
I was very depressed. I was depressed.
But literally, though, when you actually came back down into your body,
instant. It was instant. It was instant.
And did you?
I didn't.
You woke up. You woke up. You were alive
I
again.
I woke up. It was a puddle of blood. I had been bleeding out of my nose, and I had just collapsed into the tub in the water. I'm very tall, actually. That's what saved my life. Is that I couldn't slide down completely under the water. When I kind of had my head fell against the side of the tub, and I had one leg, like I was like this with my legs out of the tub, and I could not scoop down any further. But I woke up, and it had been, I would say, probably 7 or 8 minutes. I know a lot of people would say that's not possible, but my heart did stop. My heart did restart. There was no damage. I can't explain it. I know it was a bit of time. The blood here had already it already dried here. It was just a puddle in the water. It was quite horrific, really, to wake up with that. And to be like, and then I went to tell my girlfriend what happened, and she goes, man, you must have been really high. Because, I just said, I got to go. And they're like, no, you need to stay. I said, no, I've got to go. And I remember just wet hair, wet clothes, didn't even use a towel, threw my clothes on. I ran out the door, went back home, and just really tried to piece together what had happened. And I did talk to some people in the church, and they, again, same exact limited mindset. This is witchcraft. You were using drugs. Satan gave you a delusion, something to that effect, and could not accept that I'd had this experience so profoundly beautiful, and that I had seen not necessarily God, but I saw the face of, and my personal experience with source. And they just, there was no validity to that. That was back in 1997, somewhere around that. No, I'm sorry, 1994 or something like that. So there wasn't a lot of NDE evidence. Like, Dr. Moody hadn't come out yet. The movies, hadn't come out yet, So, I mean, I get it. It was limited. And I guess at that time it was my personal. So it became really a solo quest for a long time. And I didn't really share this experience, but it changed me a lot.
So now after this experience, what happened to your life? How did you deal with this
I became
download?
A super big purist. No, I got baptized LDS that year. No drugs, no alcohol, no sex. I really wanted to subscribe to the highest level of purity. I felt like the LDS culture was the one that got closest to capturing what I was trying to live.
And what is LDS?
Latter-day Saints. It's the Latter-day Saint Church. It's, they call us Mormons. So I was baptized. I got taught the lessons 3 months later, got baptized. I went completely 100% into the most purest lifestyle I could live. You know, no caffeine, no coffee, no rated R movies. I really wanted to show God how grateful I was that I got my life back, that I wasn't going to just waste my life on, you know, gratification and selfishness. And I was a high school dropout. I had actually dropped out in my freshman year, failed my sophomore year for messing around, I got arrested for armed robbery by 14 years old. Not really with a gun, but yeah, I had been in some trouble. I was just a rebel. And here I was showing God, hey, this is a new leaf for me. So I went back to school. I finished all 4 years in 1 year and 9 months, ended up getting a scholarship, went to Brigham Young University for medicine, decided to study medicine because I felt so compassionate for my own body. I got this huge interest in anatomy and physiology, became an EMT, started doing all these amazing things, you know, really wanted to show God, hey, I'm on this path and look at me, look what I'm doing. It's not a waste. You brought me back. Here I am. And that lasted for quite a couple of years for me.
Just a couple. It was only a few
17 years. 17.
17 years on top.
17 years. I was pretty good about it.
So from, you know, from the level where you were at 17, for another 17 years, you kind of went to the opposite side of the spectrum. So
100%.
It sounds like you went from one extreme to another extreme, and there wasn't a whole lot of balance
Nope.
in the sense you just went all in. You seem like whenever you do something, you do it all the way. And I appreciate
all
that.
The way. All the way, yes.
Full blown debauchery or full blown sainthood. Either way, we're 100%. Going all in.
Yes, so all in, exactly.
So and you were happy, you know, because you went basically back.
I mean, I thought I was happy. I didn't realize how much self-judgment, again, I took on the self-judgments, and because it fit into that, I really didn't have to give that up. If you think about it, I really didn't, Alex, give up self-judgment. I just allowed someone else to judge me in place of myself. Right?
You gave your power away. You gave your power away.
Yeah. I was like, you know, I do sacrament. We can't live without sacrament, you know, and I have to do it. And I need to, there was all this legalism that really fit going from addiction or somebody that was an addictive personality from one thing into another. It was a plug and play situation.
Right. That's why I said the extremes. You just exchanged one for the other.
Absolutely.
And you just, so from the outside, it looked like you had really changed. And in many ways you had, but on the underlining underbelly of that, you really hadn't changed. You had just switched the drug or switched the thing, like you said, plug and play along with it.
Yeah.
So, and it's fascinating because I think you're the first, I don't think it might be not the first, but many NDEers don't go back to religion or don't go back to an organized religion. You went all into an organized religion.
I went head first.
And to be fair, you were 17. So you're just trying to figure life out. You had gone through a lot of trauma. You're trying to figure, and this is what you thought was the path for you. What was the point? What happened in the second near-death experience? Because apparently the other side's like, all right, she kind of gets it, but not really. And she's got other stuff to do. And we're going to have to bring her back up, guys. Okay. Where's the next exit point? We could bring her back up. What happened in the second near-death experience?
Well, Alex, there was a little gap. So when I joined the church, I was able to get something they call the patriarchal blessing, where they have a patriarch and he has these prophetic gifts and he puts his hands on your head. And it's a very big deal in the church to get your blessing. And I remember him putting his hands on my head and speaking these wonderful words about me. And I really wanted them to come true. So I set forth to really make all those things happen. You know, I was going to do all these travels and I was going to do missionary work and I was going to help a lot of people. And because he had said those good things, I really wanted to do it. So it really propelled me toward that side. And I have to say, to defend my faith at that time, I still love the church. I think it's wonderful. It helps a lot of people. And I have nothing negative to say. I will say that I felt comfortable when I told my missionary friends, I have these gifts. They're like, well, that's just a gift of the Holy Spirit. So they were the first church to ever tell me that my gifts were of God. And that as long as I was living a pure life, I wasn't doing divination. I wasn't seeking dead people or anything. They really made me feel safe and comfortable in my own gifts, as long as I wasn't doing them for pay, or I wasn't, out there in a certain type of way. As long as I represented myself clearly, they seemed to be okay with it. So it helped me to realize that this is a gift of God, that it is an intuition of the Holy Spirit, and however you want to name it, but they accepted it. So I felt accepted, and therefore I moved further into it. And if I wanted to be judged, I just had to go to the bishop. He would let me know what's up. I didn't have to judge myself. I would go in for my interview to get my temple recommend, and I have to run through the list of the things I did and didn't do. So for me, that was great, because I was always too hard on myself. So it was nice to have someone say, oh, this is good. You did well. I don't see any issues. Here you go. I guess getting that free pass kind of let me off the hook with that for myself. And so that lasted for a while. And I did dwindle off eventually, I went through a divorce, and I didn't feel supported in that time. And it was kind of like, what could I have done better? What could I have done more? Even though I have felt I had really been fair and honest in my marriage, it's hard when you're not married in the church. It's such a big part of the culture. It's such a big part of the Families Are Forever movement and everything they teach, that now they do more divorce care, but then it was really a single woman with like 4 kids or something going around. It was hard. What could you have done better? I remember the bishop sitting with me. What could you have done better? What could you have done more? And it really separated me from the church, because it became not a personal path, but more of a path like of my whole family. So everybody had to be doing it for me to be okay in the church standing, I guess. So I ended up moving away from that, and my gift got stronger and stronger, Alex, after that first NDE. I remember it took me about a year, and a lot of NDE survivors go through a depression. We really do. I mean, coming back here is like, you get caught up in the physical, but you remember that this is an avatar state, and that this is a simulation. This is a simulated life for our personal growth and development. It feels real. It is real. The body we live in itself is real to this dimension, but the spiritual self is living a simulation. This is an avatar that we've chosen for what we need it to be used for. And so there was some depression, yes. And I think the church filled that in. But eventually, when I went through my divorce, I began to feel that same kind of sadness. Like, if I don't have the church, am I really connected to God? So I went through a real spiritual journey. I was an EMT paramedic, and I was at the scene of a 10-car pileup. And I, at this time, was not involved with religion, and I was really self-seeking, source, connection. And I had triaged this man. He was hit in a silver sedan, and he was very injured. And I remember we did a C-spine, a C-collar. We got him out of the car, and I triaged him to go to the hospital. And I thought he was gone, because I went on to triage someone else. There was 10 cars. There's people everywhere. It was just chaos. And as I was doing that, I ran back by the car, and I go, oh my God, he's still here. What happened? So I reach in to grab the C-collar, and my hands go right through him, and it wasn't even him. It was his actual spiritual imprint in the car, and I was seeing it. And I got the chills even right now. Even telling the story gives me the chills, because I thought in that moment, I'm losing it. I went through a second time, and then I just turned and walked away. I didn't even want to process what had just happened to me. And it was probably a few days after that. I took 4 days off after that incident. And then I went back, and I began to see orbs. I could tell you if someone was going to die just based on those orbs that I would see every time I had a call in the ambulance. When we went to pick up a client, if I saw an orb either in their house or so, and they always came from a light source. So there's a light here in my office. It would come from the light to the person. If I saw any type of orb move from a light source toward my patient or into the ambulance, I already knew they were going to code. We were going to lose them. So I actually quit the ambulance business and got out of it. I did not want to work in that. And I went into surgery, because I'm like, well, I can control some of these parts, moving parts. I went into surgery. I was in surgery for about a year, and I did a surgery on a little boy. not going to say his name for his mother's sake, but he was 9 years old. He was, at the time, I did not know he was nonverbal autistic, because by the time they come to me, they're already sedated. They're already not speaking. You know, we do the tape, the eyes, we intubate, we put them on there, make a sterile field. And I saw, as I was scrubbing in, I was a surgical technologist and first assistant, so I'm scrubbing in everything. I saw a light. It was a metal sink, and I saw a light metallically reflect. And I looked, and I almost just barely caught that little orb. And I thought, God, not again, not again. So we're in the surgery, and the doctor adjusts the light with the handle. And I saw an orb go from the top of that lamp into his body. And it was not more than 30 seconds later, he began to have malignant hypothermia, which is the fatal reaction to the anesthesia. And his heart stopped, and he did actually code and die on the table right in front of me. And I saw the orb gather a second orb and come out of his mouth, and they went up to the ceiling together.
If you're enjoying this conversation, I invite you to go deeper down the rabbit hole with me on Next Level Soul TV. It's packed with exclusive content like live special guest Q&As, daily podcasts, commercial-free access to the entire Next Level Soul catalog, early access to episodes before they air, and special meditations you won't find anywhere else. We will be adding new exclusive content every month, plus you can connect with me during my monthly live streams. Just go to nextlevelsoul.com/subscribe and join our soulful community today. I'll see you on the inside.
And I thought, oh my God, what did I just see? So I'm out behind the actual hospital. An hour or two later, the mother is hysterical in front of the emergency room, crying, very upset. She speaks Spanish. I speak English, but I'm getting this urge to tell her, like, spirit was pushing me, like, in the back. Just go tell her it's okay. Tell her son is okay. And I'm thinking, I don't know this woman. I don't even speak Spanish. Like, why would I be telling her any of this? But no sooner than that, I just kept feeling this strong urge. And I saw that she had another son who spoke English. He was talking to the hospital staff outside the emergency room. And I see her husband come running over a parking block, and she's screaming, de Dios, screaming, they took our son, or, their son had passed. And I walked up. It's like as if something was pushing me, Alex, down the sidewalk. And I tell her, your son is okay. Just the worst message, because he's not okay. He just passed. Like, I really shouldn't have said that. And I've learned since then to really be careful how I speak to survivors. But I said, your son will be okay. And then he interpreted as, our son is like, my brother's okay. And then I'm like, no, he's not okay, but he's okay. And spirit's like, man, you're messing this up. This is terrible. I'm doing a terrible job, because she goes up excited, then falls down and is collapsing in her husband's arms. And then I'm like, spirit, please tell me what to say. And spirit said, tell her mother came to get her son and everything is okay. So I'm like, tell her mother came to get her son and everything is okay. And when I said that, she started screaming, crying, but happy, because her mom had died of cancer a week before.
Oh my God. Wow. And you wouldn't have known that.
No. So hospital, someone from the smoke shack had been sitting out there smoking, watching this, told the staff. I was called in. I was reprimanded. I was told that this was totally out of OSHA, HIPAA. I'd broken every regulation to be talking. I had no right to talk to this family, but I had done it. I told my supervisor, I saw a light, and they go, oh, what are you, the seer of light? So I quit my job at the hospital and became the seer of light. That's kind of how I got into this type of field.
So, all right. So when did the second NDE happen?
So that just happened to me 3 years ago. And okay. I was experiencing some extremely bad gastrointestinal issues. I couldn't figure out why. Kept going to the doctor back and forth. I could not figure out why I was so sick. I was having food intolerances. I was having stomach aches, migraines. I was always feeling sick. So I have a very good friend of mine. She's a Native American healer, and I work with her. So I called her over to do a healing on me. And I had her and another one named Angel Boss, Brina Energy Healer and Angel Boss were with me. And I said, we need to do a healing because I feel like I'm going to die. And they kept saying, Sunshine, you're so dramatic. You're not going to die. There's nothing wrong with you. And I go, no, I seriously feel like I'm going to die. And this was like 3 months before this November incident happened, November 11th, 2018. I'm sorry, 2019. And I had just felt like I was going to die. I was so depressed. It had started like right around October, and I kept having all these issues. So I asked them to come do a healing on me. Now, one was at my head, one was at my feet. This is a unique NDE, and the fact that my heart didn't actually stop, but I had a completely out of body experience. So we were on the healing table, and I told her I thought I was going to die, and she said, it's okay, we're going to do some work on you, just calm down, you're all right. As soon as she started doing the healing on my head, the whole time, I have to say, one had my head, one had my feet. And my heart started pounding. I started crying, burning up. My body was so hot. And I just said, I'm afraid to die. I started crying. I'm afraid to die. I'm afraid to die. And I felt as if I was being regressed back. And as I kept crying, I felt like my body was lifting up out of my physical form. I was being hoisted somehow up above my body. And I could look down. I knew I was still alive, but it's as if their energy was anchoring me to the body. And I looked down and saw my body, Alex, but then I remember hearing these voices say, it's okay to die. You've already done this. And I remember saying, what do you mean? And at that time, I was just transported very, very shortly, very quickly, like pulled through. And I was standing inside of what looked like unbelievable. It looks almost like I want to say almost like a hospital or a lab. I was inside. It was all beautiful white, but it looked very clinical. And I was on a table. It looked exactly like the way I was laying right now on the bed, on the healing table. But in this instance, I was told by these two beings, and I could see them. Even though I was laying down, one was to my right, one was to my left, and they had came around me, and they were very tall, completely light beings. Their bodies looked just like mine, but maybe 8 to 9 feet tall, if I had to guess. Very, very lanky. They didn't have any of the curvatures really that we have. Very long, very, very pale, extremely white. And I knew that they were like a mother and father to me, that I had known them forever, that we had been together. And it brought me such comfort because I never had a mother and a father in this life. And to know that they're not on earth right now, I was no longer seeking them. I was so glad that they knew who I was and they remembered me and I remembered them. And they said, don't cry. You've already died before. And I go, how did I die? What do you mean? And they said, you died to be born there. You died here to be born there. Let me show you. And they showed me that my body went completely numb and that my spirit had to disengage from my body in that world to come to this one. And it felt like death to me there. And I was crying there too, saying, I don't want to die. They're like, you're not dying. You're being born. It's okay. You'll come back. Like, I was afraid because it starts at your feet and moves upward as your awareness is transferring into that fetal body or into the baby body. And it's a trap. You feel trapped. It's very loud. I remember all of that happening where I had a fully functional body. I was completely able to think and move freely. And then I was being into this tiny infant body. And they were showing me that was death to me there, to be born here. And then I said, I was still very upset. And they showed me my guides. And I was shocked to find out I had a different guide for each part of my life. And they'd had all my memories. I had one as a baby that just was with me from ages 0 to 2. And that guide just stayed with me because it loves to be around infants. It enjoys that time of life. It enjoys guiding a soul through the infancy. Then I had another guide from 2 to 4 years old. And this guide had all my memories. That's what was shocking to me. Every guide had every memory. So I had a playmate from 2 to 4 that showed me the toys I played with from the ages of 2 to 4, and they were correct. The memories I had one from 4 to 6 years old, and then from 6 to 9, when my sexual abuse started, I had a guide that was there just to support me through that time. That guide was with me through everything, that I was never alone. I felt alone, but I was never alone. I had a guide that was with me in my early teens from 10 to 12 when I started self-harm. and they had all my memories. And I told
Wow.
them, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be here. And they said that the core of my being, every human spirit has, it's called the core of your being. And it is the part that is instilled within, I guess, the mother's womb or the fetus. However, to help this, once that's implanted, your soul then begins to come into that body. It has a choice, but it begins to come into that body. And the core of the being can die even while a soul is on earth. And when that happens, the person will get suicidal, they'll become addicted, they'll lose the light in their eyes, they'll become homicidal. All these different strange human behavioral phenomenons happen when we disconnect from the core of our being, which is our higher self. We can do that through drug use or abuse or whatever. We can disconnect. And they said, you know, the core of your being is dying and don't let it die. You know, you're okay. And I said, why do I feel like I'm dying? And then, which is the most fanatical thing, they said, because you're dying in your past life. And I was like, what? And they said to me, I was poisoned at the same age that I was in this life, you know, 4 years ago. The same age in my last life, I was poisoned. And in this life, I was experiencing with no physical reason, the exact same symptoms, pain, suffering, food intolerances, fear of foods, phobia. Everything I was experiencing was in perfect match and alignment to what I had just experienced in my past life. And then I said, you know, telepathically, why am I going through it again? And they go, because they're happening at the same time, which I couldn't grasp. I'm like, what do you mean they're happening at the same time? And they're like, well, when you heal this life, you'll heal that one. And da-da-da-da. I had heard that, but I didn't know what that meant. So to me, that you're saying that a part of me is living in the past at this very moment, being poisoned by somebody, by a family member, and I'm experiencing that physical, energetic residue in this current life. And they said, yes. And this is why you're afraid to die, because your death was going to happen tomorrow at the same time as it was happening in that timeline. So I was physically experiencing that. And that healing I did the day before my death, actually, I don't know if it stopped it, but it definitely stopped all the symptoms for me in this life. So it was really an unusual NDE. I really felt comforted. I don't know of anybody that talks of tall, light beings being family, but when I
I've
came
heard
back,
those.
I
Yeah, I've heard
felt so
that.
happy because I began to look up, you know, star seeds, and I felt so happy because I'm like, oh my gosh, this explains so much, you know,
Sure.
about star seeds, because I knew that they were you know, Nordic. I knew that when I looked them up immediately, I recognized myself as well, you know, 6 foot, blonde hair, food intolerances, psychic ability, healing ability to have thought communication. So it really felt good. And I have felt so grounded and connected since then. I've
That's
really
awesome.
never suffered with that feeling of loneliness that I had before that experience.
So after this NDE, had you come out of the closet, if you will, like publicly yet?
Yes, I was way out of the closet, but I didn't really know why I still felt different. Yeah, I was channeling already. So I was already
Hmm.
doing messages. I had done my first 200 readings for St. Jude's kids. I had worked on
Hmm.
Sandy Hook, Columbine, the Green River Killer. I had done over 40 missing persons. I've done about
Wow.
100 pro bono mediumships for cold cases. I always try to do cold cases. I try to keep a balance spiritually of what I get paid to do and what I do for free. So I have a scholarship. If people need help, they can just apply for it. And I do a lot of cold cases for people that have lost traction on their case. And I connect to the souls and try to give clues or information. And then I do a lot of medical mediumship, believe it or not, now. Because of that experience, I now see why so many clients have physical problems that may or may not even relate to their body at this moment.
Right. Right. I mean, from my understanding, is that like if you have you know, your shoulder hurts and it's been chronic all your life and there's never really been an issue for you, never had an injury for it, you could have been hit there with an axe during the Middle Ages, or something along those lines. Or if you have like a mole or something on your back. You might have been shot
Yes.
in a war back there, and that's where it's manifesting in that back.
Yes.
Is that what is that true?
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. And I mean, I have now got to work with, I've done over 150,000 sessions at this point.
Wow.
And that's a lot of sessions. And I can tell you that at least 20,000 of the people that I work with and do session work for, I don't call them readings, they're sessions. And they'll actually come through and show me in their Akashic that they are, and not always living concurrent. Some people are living concurrent. Some people with schizophrenia are living concurrent lives. And they're picking up on 2 or 3 different perceptions, which is sad that we, don't understand that yet. But some people are living concurrent. And once we realize that, we can address that and actually separate the timelines, and they don't no longer experience, they have, I've seen personally working with clients, remissions of cancers, lupus, fibromyalgia, just so many different things. I've seen injuries, and I've seen people that had what I call war wounds because they did really have them. And once we address them, we heal them and we separate the timelines. It's amazing.
It's interesting. From your experience, I've heard this, is that there are multiple parallel lifetimes going on to us currently in
I
this life.
never heard that until then.
Right. So from what I understand, it's that we have parallel lives in this life. We also have our past lives, our future lives, all happening at the same time too, which is fascinating, and my head hurts thinking about it. But as we moving, so in this conversation, you and I are in the same timeline in our lives at this time period on Earth. But if we make a decision, that's a major decision, not like if I eat ketchup or I'm using mustard, but every major decision splits off to another timeline. So like, and I always use example, like, what if I date Billy? How about if I married Billy? What would have happened if I married Billy, my high school sweetheart? What would have happened? And there's an entire timeline that they show you on the other side sometimes, to just for you to go, oh, that's what would have happened. All right, yeah, I'm glad it didn't go that way. Or did I take that job in New York or not take that job in New York? How would my life changed? Or something along those lines. What is your understanding of that world?
I did not know about Nexus points, but that is exactly what it is. There's Nexus points where I was calling them wishbone moments when I was 17, right? Because like a wishbone, I was like, oh, I could stay, I could go, but there's always a consequence, and not necessarily a bad one, but it's just, this is the consequence if you stay, this is the consequence if you go. When I came back from this second NDE, which was an out-of-body NDE, I don't know if it's truly technically, but I do know I was fully absent from the body. And I was experiencing my pre-death existence. So I would still call it that. I definitely feel as if I was being told that my oversoul was going to come back with me more. So I would never be as separate from my higher self as I was before that experience. And when they told me that I was living another life at the same time, that was not a question. That was an absolute, like, yes, time is not as linear as you think. Many things are happening. And yes, to answer the question, Nexus points, it's where paths cross or converge, and you have 2 spiritual contracts you can go. So like you say, it is something that they told me was a bigger decision, but it had to be a decision that affects contracts for it to change timelines. So it can't just be, I'm going to go with a red shoe over a blue shoe, or I'm going to go on a date with Jimmy or a date on Anthony. It has to be, if you had a contract with Anthony, then yes, that would be a Nexus point. And if you simply had a contract with Gavin, then that would also be a Nexus. So if you had signed a soul contract to help Gavin through addiction, and you're going to help Anthony through the death of his mother, then whichever way you go is then formulating a separate timeline. Absolutely true.
Fascinating. When you came back, you already been working. You had already been doing sessions. You're all in at this point. When you first decided to come out of the spiritual closet. Yeah, the spiritual
closet.
Literally the bloom closet, because you're a witch, obviously.
Yeah. Yes.
When you decided to come out, how was that? How was that? How did the people around you deal with it? How did you
terrible. Terrible.
I mean, not just saying stories. I'm like saying, like, I'm going all in. I'm going to be a professional doing this work.
I got laughed out of town. I had to leave the small town I was in. Everybody's like, oh, she can't be a psychic. I know her. She's in the PTA. She's not a psychic. She's in the PTA. Like, I know she's not a psychic. She's a soccer mom. Like, get real, you know? People don't understand that just like you can be a psychic butcher, baker, candlestick maker, it's a level of awareness. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a one label. Like you can be an Italian, right? Catholic, motocross racer. Like we can attribute and quantify multiple labels to ourselves. I actually don't even call myself psychic because I don't know if I like the label, maybe because it was so associated with witchcraft, and it's not.
Yeah.
So all you psychics don't take that.
Right, and you might have been burned at the stake somewhere. I
was shown that I did. That was my first parallel life that I saw, and they were so proud of me. I forgot to mention that. Yes, it was like 1432. I was actually killed. I was actually burned alive, and with my house and everything. And it wasn't just me; it was me and a daughter. We were both burned alive, and so my fear of coming out in this life was about transmuting the fear of persecution and judgment and ridicule. So to go back to my story, that's exactly what I faced was persecution, fear, and ridicule. I was laughed at. I was thrown out of the church. I have since not been able to get a temple recommend, even though I live all the gospel principles. I tithed, I did everything. I was denied temple membership. So I eventually left the church. I joined a non-denominational Christian church, tried to be with them. Same thing happened because of my job. My kids weren't even allowed in the Christian homeschoolers group. I've dealt with a lot of that, and and I realize it's a limited belief and idea based on perception, so I don't internalize it. But it was awful to be in a small town. I was laughed at. I mean, people would say things like, if I got a ticket, like, couldn't you predict that? Or if I had anything, like my roof leaked, well, couldn't you predict that? What's the lotto numbers? What's the, whatever. And so there's a lot of like misunderstanding with how this gift works. I don't use it for myself. I don't use it for myself. I use it for the betterment of others. And through that, I am blessed. By helping others, I heal myself. And by healing others, I heal the future. So I raise my vibration by raising others, but I don't use it, I don't gamble. I don't do lotto numbers or, bet on the races. People don't understand that. So as long as I think in the beginning, I really took it personal, Alex, but now I just kind of laugh at it and it just goes over my head. I don't worry about it.
Sunshine, I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests. What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
Oh man, I live it every day. Living a fulfilled life is first having self-love. Like I said, that first one was major. If you can't find a way to love yourself, then the love other people give you will never be enough. So if you seek all validation in others, they can take that away. So loving yourself, no matter what it is you love about yourself. Number two, it's all love, calling for love. So finding love within the world, whether it's with a group of friends, whether it's with your pet, whether it's just helping others. It can be orphans. I have 30 orphans I take care of. I love them. And there's always this exchange frequency of just love. So love yourself, love others, and find a purpose in life. Because without purpose, it's very easy to get discouraged and bogged down and stuck in ourselves.
If you had a chance to go back in time and speak to little Sunshine, what advice would you give her?
Oh, man. You are such a beautiful, powerful being. And I'm so grateful that I got to walk the planet with you and keep transmuting, because we're all really here to do that anyways, just to transmute, learn the lessons, level up, and go back and tell the story and laugh about it later.
How do you define God or source?
We're from it. I always try to define it now as God is a disco ball, and we are each a fractal of that. And depending on where you stand in the room, I actually have a disco ball in the center, and we teach this right here in the center. Some people are going to see it as the feminine. Some people might see it as the masculine. Some will see it as Krishna, some as Buddha, some as Shiva, Parvati, Mary, Joseph, Jesus. It's all source. We're all part of source expressing ourselves. And that's what I believe. We're never separate. That's just an idea. If we can convince people they're separate from God, then we can sell them the plan for how to get back to him.
Yes. I don't know about you. God's been telling me I need a Learjet, so you can send donations too.
Exactly.
What is love?
Love is the ability to give and receive of yourself. So to give something of yourself and to receive something of yourself. And I always teach that love is not a feeling, but rather the action of looking after someone's best interest, whether you're with them or it's behind their back.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
To serve God and to serve each other, just to serve, to just be of service to. And I have a lot of clients that I'm virtual, so I do a show virtually. And I teach that we are all God's expression of love on the planet. So learn to love one single living thing. And if you've done that, you already have a great purpose. Feed a cat, water a plant, hug a child, say hi to a neighbor, just do something to make the world a little better. Even if you're housebound, find one small thing and just give it a little bit of love. And you've already made such a difference on the whole planet.
And where can people find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing in the world?
Sunshinefrost.com is pretty simple. You can just hit Sunshine Frost on Google. I have a YouTube channel. It is Spirit Doctor Sunshine Frost. TikTok, I have a nightly show called Spirit Doctor Sunshine Frost, and pretty much the same on Instagram and Facebook.
And do you have any parting messages for the audience?
I love the show. I love the Next Level Soul family. Thank you to the One Tribe. That's my group. We're called One Tribe because we believe in healing ourselves, then turning back to heal each other, hopefully healing the community, raising the vibration. So I just want to thank everybody that got me here because I didn't do this by myself. I thank my guides, angels, source. I thank you for doing this show. I'm a very big fan, but it's because I see the important work you're doing, giving a platform to so many who truly need to hear these messages so they don't feel alone anymore. If I can help like one 17-year-old girl not do, or 17-year-old guy not do what I did or get stuck, then I feel like all of it's been worth it.
Sunshine, it's been such a pleasure having you. And thank you so much for sharing your amazing story of awakening. Like I said, your misadventures in your spiritual journey. So I appreciate you and what you're doing to help awaken the planet. So thank you, my dear.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.